Welcome, worship leaders and team members. We're looking forward to episode 132 as we discuss 3 things that you can handle in your next worship team meeting. Getting together with your team, whether it's just 2 or 3 or even 100, it's important for moving your team forward, for sharing your vision, encouraging each person, and building community. Today I am here with my dear friend, Mr. Tim Price, and we're looking forward to our time with you today. How are you, Mr. Price? Are you snowed in there in the Midwest?
Yeah, it has been snowy, that's for sure. We still have a lot of snow on the ground, but it's been bright and sunny the last 2 or 3 days, but still super cold.
Yes.
So we don't have, the roads are fine, but our yard and deck is totally covered still. Hasn't hardly melted at all, it doesn't seem like.
Yes, I get it.
How's it down there?
Well,
You're
here
farther south than me.
just a little bit, yeah, a few hours, I guess. Here in western Kentucky, we got about 4 or 5 inches of snow last Friday, and still around here in spots, but in the shady spots, there's some snow. But the sun has popped out, and we've had a few days of sun, although it's not been very warm. It looks warmer than it really is. So,
I got they've been hearing different people, they get kind of stuck in their homes. Kids didn't go back to school for like a week after Christmas, after they'd already been off. People were, it was some of the stories are kind of comical.
yeah.
But I just got something sent to me on Facebook. It was a link for why it's so important to sing. And I know this may not even fit here, but we could share it on the show notes. But
Yeah.
this guy was just describing real quickly on a Facebook reel the importance of singing because it produces in our brains chemicals, and good chemicals, and it decreases the bad ones that cause stress and other things, and it unifies us, pulls us together. And so I just thought that came at a timely time, because sometimes these winter months people start kind of getting blue.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty simple it's pretty easy to slip into like, oh man, I haven't been out of the house, it gets dark at 4. So
Yeah.
that singing's kind of an important thing. So that's good for worship leaders to know, and to help others do the same thing.
Absolutely. Well, that's pretty neat. Very important. I mean, yeah, you're right. A lot of people get stressed out this time of year. We've come off the holidays and it's cold and gets dark early, and so
Everybody's in debt. They've eaten bad for 2 weeks. It's just
exactly. Yeah, I feel all sluggish. So that's why I leave my guitar. My guitar's sitting around in a stand, so that when I walk by, I'm way more likely to just grab it and sit down and sing a little bit than if I had to get it out of the case and all that.
Yeah.
So if you play
definitely true.
yeah, play guitar, leave it out, man. If you, they buy you a cheap one or something and leave it out, and
Or if you have a piano in your house, that's
exactly,
also easy access.
Yeah, leave that keyboard out accessible where you can get to it and not have to pull it out of the closet. So.
Yep, that's true.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, today we're talking about 3 components that worship teams need in their meetings. What are some of the ways that you've seen groups get together for meetings in local church ministry?
Yeah, I mean, it's important to meet. Most often we just think about the rehearsal. I think we've talked about that quite a bit.
Yeah.
And that's important. But at the start of the year, and really any time, 2 or 3 times a year, we talked about this on the last podcast, I think, but it's important for people to meet for just specific reasons, which we got 3 of them. They all start with C by chance. And I've seen groups in churches get together in a myriad of ways. As far as our own church, we've tried a little bit of everything. It's kind of like bouncing between Tylenol and
Advil.
Advil. Like the oscillating factor kind of keeps it fresh. But I remember for a season we met like 3 Friday nights a year, and we would just have food and a party and watch some of the recent services and kind of pick it apart and make fun of each other, bad stage presence or whatever, and just sort of like be together in that. And then we do some other agenda items too. But we often will use our Wednesday night rehearsal for a time just to meet for a few minutes to, sort of housekeeping stuff, not a huge thing. One time for a meeting, we kicked off a Daniel fast, and for a whole month, the whole worship team did the Daniel fast, which is basically no meat, no dairy, no sweets, no caffeine, and got together afterwards and talked about how that went. And then, of course, we've done some other things, Sunday nights, Wednesday evening dinner and meeting. Sometimes for a while, we had a tradition of breakfast meetings where we would actually meet like at 7 o'clock on Sunday morning before everything kicked off. just because that was about the only time people for sure were available. And if somebody was leaving the group after many years or something like that, we'd have a breakfast potluck and just kind of celebrate and say bye and things like that. So yeah, the possibilities of when to meet for a worship team are endless, and it really doesn't matter if it's every musician, church worship person has some kind of team, whether if it's just you and a sound person, or you and a computer person, or you and the keyboard person, or whatever it is.
Right.
Even if it's 3 people and you're sitting at Qdoba in a booth just saying thanks and talking, or whether it's 100 people and you've got a whole big plan and agenda and everything else, it's good to get together now and then when you're not on stage going for it.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I don't know about you, but I love meetings. I actually really enjoy having meetings like that with the team, and I don't know, it just motivates me. Lets you kind of communicate. I'm a big communicator, so I love to hear what people are thinking and ideas and suggestions and how we can make things better. So.
Yeah, you mentioned that last time, and usually that's kind of rare. A lot of people are like trying to get out of meetings, but
Yeah.
if the meetings are done well, or if it's a purpose and it's a good connector, or if you're an extroverted type person, then it's kind of fun, like you said.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, meetings are cool.
Yeah, absolutely. But well, here's 3 reasons to meet together with your worship team, and the 3 that we came up with are core, craft, and community. No matter the exact format or time slot, it's important to find times to meet together for these purposes. And so let's begin with the first one, which is core.
Yep. Hopefully the C's are easy to remember, but the core part of this is the faith part, the stuff that's helping your team member to remember that ministry comes out of who you are and not that it's the other way around. So God is in you and you're walking with the Lord, you're growing in faith, and out of that overflow, we're able to stand up and lead, be sensitive to God's presence, and not get overly focused on, the work, but be focused on God and our growth in faith. And the core also, our faith, getting to the heart of the whole thing, helps us remember that the church isn't ours, that Jesus really does own the church, and we're just part of it for this season. So when we're having a meeting with our worship team, we want to somehow incorporate a focus on faith, on Jesus and his word, and basically just always have something related to the reminder and the inspiration that it's about Jesus that we're doing this to start with.
Right.
So that's what I was thinking of in terms of core, starting with the C, that it's about the heart and about the foundation of our faith.
Right, absolutely. So what about number 2, the C word, craft?
So core is about the inner part, and craft is probably about the outer stuff, the skill and talent and the intentional improvement. And a few questions a team leader could ask themselves here is, how are we helping our worship team to grow and improve? And what challenges are we offering them to take us up on to learn new songs or harder songs or a new way of doing things? And basically just what ways can your team become excellent? I heard somebody say one time that there's a fine line between a groove and a rut, and how it has to do with how you're progressing musically. And so if you're still doing the exact same song with the exact same riffs in the exact same way with the same mic check problems and everything else, you're probably not progressing. You're probably stuck in a rut. But if you're in a groove, you're doing some new things, and the group is growing together. So you really want to help your team just grow. And for the leader, we could talk about this a little bit. I mean, you have to kind of provide that kind of environment somehow. And I'm not sure what all those components are of providing the right environment, because it kind of depends on the style of your church. But one way is during meetings to invite them to think about how they could improve, and whatever resources you have to help them do that would be great.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. How have you experienced that? Either helping yourself improve or other people? Like, what are the tools or the inspiration?
Yeah. Well, I think honing your craft as a musician or singer is something that we all need to do, and there's lots of ways to do that nowadays with technology, and there's lots of apps and things. And I think a lot of people fall into that rut of just showing up each Sunday and singing or playing, and they don't actually take the time during the week to practice the songs, get familiar with the songs, and how does this song kick off? How are we going to close it? And all those little things that you think, well, it'll just happen, from the
Yeah.
stage. And so, but we have to be, like we've talked about before, prepared for spontaneity, and so we've got to know the songs inside and out. So any way you can make yourself a better singer, better musician, or whatever, that's just going to be a great way to hone your own craft. So
Yeah, and sometimes, all that's you're exactly right. And some of it also comes from just meeting together will sometimes fuel the intentionality of being like, if we want to sound better, I'm gonna have to do my part. Or,
Right.
I'm challenged by the fact that, you're in a meeting or something, you could say, yeah, and I really appreciate so and so. They've really pulled out some great guitar solos this season or whatever. I remember saying one time on Planning Center, the
Mhm.
scheduling app and music, you can actually tell who in the team has logged in and checked out the songs for rehearsal. Like
Mm.
you can actually see how many times and when they did that.
Yeah.
And I remember mentioning that one time, and a bunch of people were like, "Uh-oh," because it's like
Yeah.
you're in third grade and you just got in trouble because you didn't do your homework type thing.
Exactly.
But just sometimes just sitting in those meetings and talking about the expectation of practicing on your own so that we can rehearse well together and things like that will help people take a step in their craft and learn it more.
Right, absolutely. And I think that starts at the top, whoever the worship leader is, the music director, whatever their title is, the more prepared and encouraging they are, it's going to help the team. I know the music leader at our church sends out the songs for 3 weeks.
Mm.
And so we know what songs, what key they're in, and 3 weeks ahead of time. And then the week before, she will send out those songs just for that week. And then, so there's really no other, it's kind of, you just have to take it upon yourself to know the songs and practice them and that sort of thing. And then we do show up obviously and practice before the service, but
Yeah,
how prepared your leader is really helps that as well.
yeah. If you want people to actually practice, you got to send them the songs.
Right.
Somebody's got to have the burden of that.
Right, exactly. Because I
And
have been in churches before where it's like you show up for early for church to practice with the band, and they're like, "Oh, what are we gonna sing this week? I don't know what you want to sing this week," And I've literally been in that situation. It's very frustrating, and it's something about it that just deflates the spirit or my mood for me.
yeah, that I could definitely see that. That's true.
Yeah. But
Yeah, one
anyway.
more thing about sending songs. Sometimes you can increase people's skill just by sending them harder songs.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you listen to it, or it's a new song, even it's not even harder; it's just new,
Mm-hmm.
unfamiliar. And all of a sudden, they're jogged, and they're like, "Ooh, I better listen to that. And I better learn it."
Right.
And so you can really kind of that rhythm really helps get things rolling.
Right, absolutely. Especially like our church does a mixture of traditional hymns and some praise and worship type songs, and so the feel of those songs is different. So it takes a little bit of practice, even though you think you might know the song. For me, anyway, like to go from some glad morning and I'll fly away to, a modern praise and worship song is just a totally different feel. And if you practice those transitions ahead of time, it comes off a lot better.
Yeah, yeah, I
So,
love that "I'll Fly Away" song. That's a good one.
yeah, it's my favorite old hymn for sure. So, but anyways, we move on to the third thing that we want to talk about today, and that is community.
So you're hosting a meeting with your leaders, and you're trying to figure out what you'd even say at a meeting. This is a good template just to know that you're going to talk a little bit about faith and appreciation for your team leading. You're going to talk about craft and some ways that your worship band can intentionally get better. And then you're also going to include some aspects of community, which is the whole gist of having a meeting to begin with. So one thing I've found, at least in our worship team, is a lot of worship team people are kind of singularly focused in the church. Like it's kind of a mini part-time job if you're on the worship band for the week, because you got to
Hmm.
get the songs, you got to spend a couple hours running through them, you got to get to rehearsal, you got to spend 2 or 3, at least hour and a half, 2 hours all total at rehearsal. And
Hmm.
then you go there on Sunday morning and lead a couple hours, and pretty soon you're up to 7, 8, 10 hours kind of a part-time volunteer job.
Absolutely.
And as a result, a lot of those folks aren't heavily involved in other areas. And so one of the gifts you can give to your team is to build community and camaraderie around your own group. Even if it's a rotating team, you can still do this. And it kind of becomes for them their sort of small group at the church, a mission team, a ministry team, however you want to put it. And so the idea of building community is just building on that framework and praying before worship, have food at your meeting, kind of give people opportunity to answer a question and talk about some things. And one thing we did once that really built some community was we took trips to other churches and just assigned everybody another church to go visit. And we came back, had lunch, and talked about it. And that was a one-time thing. I should have done it more often, but we just did it once, and just for the sake of learning and growing.
Yeah.
But that really did help build community. Sometimes your meetings might be one focus of this. Like you might have a meeting that really is just for the purpose of community, and pray together, and you wouldn't say much about schedules or songs. You would just be with the goal of bringing people together. Other times your meeting might be more about logistics and getting better. There's a lot of different ways to do it. One other note here, and just something I remember and something I always love doing. It's great to build identity in your team for community. And one of the ways we've done that in the past was through like T-shirts and hats and things that just allowed people to buy in and know they're part of a group.
Yes.
So,
absolutely. That's a great idea. We live in a branded world for sure. People know what the Golden Arches are, they know what the Nike swoosh is, and just any kind of logo or branding can definitely build community for sure. So
yeah, interesting. I've never heard the phrase "we live in a branded world," but
yeah,
that is true.
We do. Everything is branded these days, and it can be something as big as McDonald's to as small as a worship team at a church. But
yeah. And T-shirts are really cheap. Like,
oh yeah,
not that everybody's gonna wear. Not may not be the style for your church. We actually never wear those shirts for leading worship as a whole. Sometimes people would just have one on, but even before then, our church did like polos back when that was a thing, and all the certain age people wore the polos for hospitality or whatever.
Right.
But that's definitely a thing that builds identity and belonging and community, and that's what you're shooting for when you're trying to get a meeting together.
Yes, absolutely.
We did something the other night, and I can't remember where we even were, but the topic went to cars. And I've always remembered this statement that if you're ever leading a men's ministry and you want some discussion, just ask them about their first car.
Yep.
And it's not just men, it's kind of everybody.
Yeah.
And you have to cut off the conversation after a while. So if you have 2 or 3 good discussion questions for some small groups within your ministry as you're sitting around tables, that's one of them. Tell us about your first car, and it'll go on and on and on.
Oh, so. Yeah. Most everybody remembers their first car for sure.
Yep.
Oh, man, that's so great. Well, man, these are just great ideas. Be sure and plan a time to meet with your people of your worship team. And don't get discouraged. If you're a worship leader and you're listening to this podcast, man, just know we're praying for you. We think about you, and just stay encouraged. You're doing a great work. And if you didn't get a chance, go back and listen to the first episode of the year for more ideas to get a great foundation for this new year. So, and also we want to hear from you. Go to Facebook.com/Worship Leader Toolbox. That's our Facebook page, and that's where we want to interact with you, and we'd love to hear from you on there as well. So, you got any suggestions or just thoughts or prayer requests, send them to us. So you can also find our community group page at Worship Leader Toolbox Community, and we would love to connect with you. And you can find out more at worshipleadertoolbox.com. Don't forget, sign up for our newsletter and check out all of our resources there. So until next time, we're praying for you. Thank you for listening to the Worship Leader Toolbox podcast. We'll see you next time. God bless you.